Most drivers think the moment of truth during a traffic stop is when they hand over their license. They imagine the officer standing there studying that small piece of plastic, deciding their fate in silence. That's not what's really happening. In fact, by the time your license ever leaves your hand, a quiet process has already taken place. A fast, almost invisible scan that starts the second the officer steps out of their car. And once you understand what they're actually looking at in those first few seconds, you'll realize something uncomfortable. Your license isn't even the most interesting thing to them. Let me ask you something honestly. When an officer walks up to your window, what do you think they notice first about you or your car? Drop your answer in the comments because most people get this wrong, and that misunderstanding is exactly why so many drivers feel confused by how a simple stop suddenly turns serious. Stay with me, because once you see this from the officer's perspective, you'll start to notice details you've probably missed your entire life. Now, let's slow this moment down. The patrol car stops behind you, the lights are still flashing, you're sitting there, maybe gripping the steering wheel a little tighter than usual, thinking about what you're going to say. Meanwhile, the officer opens their door. From your perspective, this is where the interaction begins. From their perspective, the interaction has already started. As they step out and begin walking toward your vehicle, something very specific happens. Their eyes are moving constantly, not randomly, not casually, but with purpose. It's a trained scan, fast and controlled, built from repetition and experience. They are not focused on one thing. They are absorbing everything. Your car, your movement, your posture, your environment, and they're doing it in seconds. The first thing many officers look for isn't your face. It isn't your license. It's your hands. Where are they? Are they visible? Are they moving? Hands tell a story instantly. Calm, steady hands resting on the wheel create one kind of impression. Hands that disappear, reappear, or move quickly create a completely different one. And here's the part most drivers don't realize. This happens before a single word is spoken. Before "good evening," before "license and registration," before anything. Now shift your attention slightly. While watching your hands, the officer is also scanning the interior of your vehicle, not in detail like a search, but in quick impressions. Is the interior calm or chaotic? Are there objects scattered everywhere? Is there something out of place that catches the eye immediately? A large bag in the back seat, an open container, something partially hidden under a jacket. Again, this isn't about jumping to conclusions, it's about building awareness, because awareness reduces uncertainty, and uncertainty is the one thing officers are always trying to manage. Now here's where it gets more interesting. At the same time they're observing the inside of your car, they're also observing you as a person. Not just your face, but your behavior. Are you making eye contact or avoiding it completely? Are your movements controlled or rushed? Are you turning around frequently, checking mirrors, adjusting things repeatedly? These are not random observations. They are signals. And those signals start forming a mental picture. Now let me be clear about something, because this is where people often misunderstand the situation. This scan is not about trying to catch you doing something wrong. It's about answering a very simple question. Is this situation predictable or is it uncertain? Predictable situations are easier to manage. Uncertain situations require more caution. And the difference between those two often comes down to what the officer sees in those first few seconds. Let's take a real-world type scenario. A driver pulls over smoothly. The car stops. The driver places both hands on the wheel and sits still. From the officer's perspective, that's a calm starting point. Now imagine a different version. The driver stops, then immediately leans over, opens the glove compartment, closes it quickly, reaches toward the floor, then adjusts something on the seat. From inside the car, it might feel like normal preparation. From outside, it looks like rapid, unexplained movement. Now the officer approaches with a different level of attention. Same stop, different beginning, and that difference started before the license was ever requested. Now here's something even more subtle that most people miss completely. Officers don't just scan what is happening, they scan what changes. Change is what stands out. If you were driving normally, then suddenly become very still, that's a change. If you were calm, then suddenly start moving quickly, that's a change. If your posture shifts dramatically the moment you notice the patrol car, that's a change. And changes are often more noticeable than steady behavior. This is why experienced officers sometimes say they can feel when something is off. What they're really describing is a series of small observations that don't match the expected pattern. Now let's talk about something that might surprise you. Your vehicle itself tells a story too, not in a judgmental way, but in a contextual way. Out-of-state plates, temporary tags, visible damage, tinted windows, stickers, equipment. Each detail adds a small piece to the overall picture. None of them mean anything on their own, but together, they create context. And context helps the officer decide how to approach the situation. Now bring this all together for a moment. Before the officer even speaks to you, they have already gathered multiple layers of information. Your driving behavior before the stop, your reaction to the lights, your movements after stopping, the visibility of your hands, the condition and layout of your vehicle, your body language. All of this happens in silence. So when drivers say, the officer already seems suspicious, what they're often reacting to is the result of this silent scan. It's not random. It's not personal. It's a process. Now here's where this becomes important for you as a driver. Most people focus on what to say during a traffic stop. They rehearse answers. They think about explanations. But by the time the conversation begins, the first impression has already been formed. And that impression matters more than most people realize. Because once an officer forms an initial understanding of the situation, everything that follows is interpreted through that lens. If the situation feels calm and predictable, the interaction often stays that way. If it feels uncertain, the officer remains more alert. That doesn't mean anything bad will happen, but it does change the tone. Now let me give you a simple adjustment that makes a bigger difference than most advice you'll ever hear. When you see those lights, don't rush. Slow down smoothly, signal clearly, pull over in a safe location. Once you stop, keep your hands visible. Let the moment settle. Resist the urge to start reaching for everything immediately. Wait for the officer to approach and give instructions. When you do move, make it slow and obvious. This isn't about acting perfect. It's about reducing confusion. Because confusion is what turns a simple stop into a more complicated one. Now here's the part that really changes how you think about all of this. The officer isn't just scanning to find problems. They're scanning to eliminate them. They're looking for reasons to feel comfortable. Clear hands, calm behavior, predictable movement. These things tell the officer that the situation is under control. And when a situation feels under control, everything becomes easier. The conversation, the decisions, the outcome. So the next time you think about a traffic stop, don't focus on the moment you hand over your license. That moment matters, but it's not where the real interaction begins. The real interaction starts earlier, in silence, in observation, in a series of quick, subtle details that most drivers never notice. And once you understand that, you start to see something most people miss entirely. By the time the officer says their first word, they've already seen enough to shape everything that comes next.